quería empezar por, no voy a hablar portuñol, porque lo entiendo perfectamente lo español, entonces por muy rápido que ustedes hablen, lo entiendo. Mas no consigo comunicar correctamente, y mucho menos escribir correctamente. Entonces, voy a pedir tolerancia de ustedes y voy a hablar inglés. Más quería decir que muchas gracias a Francisco Michavila. Ha sido un placer enorme de colaborar con la cátedra en tus encuentros en Benicassin. Me gustó muchísimo porque también aprendí muchísimo. Manolo, gustaría que me permitas de te recordar que yo fui hecha por los españoles. Bueno, entonces soy del sur. Y fueron los españoles, juntamente con otros del sur, que me eligieron. Entonces es preciso que eso sea también integrado en la ecuación. Well, now I need to switch into English. And I'll try to remind you that 30 years ago, there was no internet. Ireland was a poor country in Europe. It has become rich in the meantime, and it's poor again. But Brazil, for instance, and Mexico, the Latin America had no role whatsoever in higher education. And this situation has changed completely. In South Africa, we still had an apartheid state. There was no Google, no Facebook, no digital photography, so you could not have done what you did this morning. And the question is that the changes continue. And they continue in a way that we, universities, cannot predict. However, education is more important than ever. Another thing that has changed considerably during the last 15 years is the demands on universities. From educating citizens, and I like this word, we educate citizens. We have to train professionals. We have to supply the human resources, the human capital that Europe needs. We have to do research and to do it with high qualities. We are asked to talk to our local and regional authorities in the cities where we exist to foster innovation, communication, to transmit, to transform knowledge into wealth. There are people that say that research is the result of of money, and innovation is the result of transforming that knowledge into money. So we need, universities are nowadays asked to close this circle. We are asked to do it together with municipalities, with local governments, with industries, with one another, with the Sur and the North and the South and West and Africa and Latin America. We are global nowadays. And now this is my question. We have asked all this, but how does society measure our contribution? And that for me is not clear. So in this slide, I'm trying to summarize what I'm going to talk about, because otherwise I am unstoppable. So I'll try to concentrate on European context in terms of, well, what's there, then quality, autonomy and funding, and then what is an European perspective on internationalization. Now, the general context. What have changed in these last years? Nowadays, we are asked and we are driven, our economies are driven by knowledge. They are no longer labor intensive or even capital intensive, but knowledge intensive. It is estimated that in 2020, 35% of all jobs in Europe will require tertiary education. We are asked by the Commission to be less elitist, more access in such a way that in 2020, the citizens above 30 and below 34, 40% of that age cohort will need a higher degree from a university. Now, all of us know the phenomenon of rankings. That's how society tends to measure our work. And I am at the same time very sad about that, but also very hopeful, because rankings are growing by the day. So one of these days, you will see that my university is the first one in one ranking. And that's the big advantage of having so many rankings. But rankings are flawed. And nowadays, I think I have, and Manuel, you were there, Teresa, you are there. We have a problem. Is that in Europe nowadays we tend to accept the U multi-ranking that has been promoted by the Commission with many of our universities. It's supposed to be the tool to identify good performing universities in the different areas. But the data that is used has not, to my knowledge, been validated. So if you work with data that is not valid, it's very difficult to get valid results. I'm sorry, this is my physicist approach. Bad data, wrong results. And then we have all over Europe, and especially in our two countries, the problem of aging and economic crisis. So the senior population is growing, and this means that the money needed for pensions and health is growing as well, and at the same time we have less young people to work. We are here we have two causes for this diminishing of the young population. One of them is obviously natality. That is one of the problems. But in the south, we have another problem. In the south, we have another problem. It's the problem of migration. Our youth that we have educated with our effort, with our money, is going away. And if this economic crisis we do not manage to reverse it quickly, they will not come back. It's very good to say, well, but they are going to Germany, they still are inside Europe. Well, they are, some. Others are going away to China, to Brazil, to Colombia. And because we have taught them so well, they are mobile. They are completely global citizens. So we have done a good job in hurting ourselves. But a good job for our youth, which is, in the end of the day, what it matters. Now, in Europe, in this European Union that we belong to, it's very interesting, because higher education is the responsibility of each country, is a national responsibility. But the research is already an European responsibility. So money for higher education has got to come from the Spanish public purse, the Portuguese public purse, and so on and so forth. But money for research, we can go and get it from Brussels. That's why the partnership between countries, it is extremely important. I would not say never, because never is really hard, but it's very seldom that I have gone into the Commission without bumping into a British colleague, a German colleague, a French colleague, and now the French and the German have a joint office there. So they are always there. And of course they are fighting for their interests. And good, that's good. It's just a pity that we do not do the same. So I'm very pleased that we are starting to do the same. Okay, what have changed in the higher education system? There are trends here. So in the between 1999 and 2009, we had the Bologna reform, so we had the system convergence in Europe, at least in 47 countries. And there is a trend of universities having more autonomy. I know that that trend is not equal in all the countries. Perhaps in the case of Spain, the trend of more autonomy is not so much felt as in other parts of the world. But more autonomy also requires more responsibility. And more autonomy also requires that inside universities we behave differently. It's not only the matter of money. It's also a matter of having the possibility of choosing the right leaders. It's not because you are, please do not get offended with me. I know I'm going on very tricky ground here, but I always say what I think. It's not because we are a catedrático in physics or in mathematics or in economics that you will be a good dean or an appropriate rector or whatever. I still remember the day after I was elected. I was elected in one day, and until being elected, it was euphoria. Talking to people, telling to people what I wanted to do, this, that, and the other. On the next day, when I entered my office, I looked at this big desk. I said, and now what? So what I mean is that possibly all the rectors that are here are better prepared than I was then. But we need to train the leaders. We need to establish at our universities, that is all in my opinion, ways of training the future leaders and train them in leadership. Train them in being able to read a budget and understand it. Train them in managing human resources, because at the end of the day, it's only human resources that universities have. Okay, since 2009, we are in the presence of highly divergent national responses to economic crisis. The countries in the south have received a lot of cuts, and the countries in the north have received a lot of increase. There are countries that think, okay, we are in a crisis, but we cannot let education or universities go down the drain. So we have got to invest them, and quiçá invest them even more than before. So if you look at the map, you see that there are divisions in Europe, north, south, west, and east. And the worst of all is not the south, thanks God for that, is the East. Because in the East, they are even worse than we are in terms of demographics. So we are, at the moment, and in my opinion, running a very high risk, the risk of fragmentation. When the people with the Professor Machivila, Paco, and Manolo, and myself, because I paint my hair. So when people with white hair go, the reasons that led to the constitution of the European Union will be forgotten. Or we run the risk that they will be forgotten. There will be other fragmentation forces that might, if we are not careful, divide Europe again. I'm not a politician, I'm not a scientist of politics or economics, but I read history. And I see that this movement is there, and it is dangerous. What has changed in terms of research inside universities? One of them is that we universities, and we are society, we cannot say society and universities. Universities are a part of society. We have recognized that the actual problems, the problems that face us, like aging, like climate change, like lack of energy, like migrations, they need interdisciplinary research to be solved. For instance, the grand challenges are, in my opinion, characterized by being caused or resulted from human behavior. So they have got to do with behavioral questions. So we need mathematicians together with sociologists, economists together with the people from literature. So we really need, and I am among friends from universities, we need to stop working in silos. Working in silos works against us. So we need really to create an interdisciplinary field to address the big challenges that we are facing now. And of course, the conditions to do that is autonomy and funding. There are studies that prove that the performance of universities depend on two things. One is funding, and the other one is autonomy. And by autonomy, I do not mean independence. I mean responsibility. Now, European research funding is crucial as a leverage for universities. Once again, well done, CRUE and CRUP. Let's go together. And I would not say fight for our rights. It's not a matter of fighting. It's letting them know that we are at least as good as. And so we can collaborate. Now, the quality of higher education. One of the messages, of the strong messages in the last 15 years is that university education should not be only for the elites. When I entered University of Lisbon, it was only 6% of the cohort on those days that entered university. Nowadays, we want to have more than 50%. So we want to really to widen the access, because our economy, our quality of life depends on the education of the population that works. It costs money, yes it costs, but somebody better than myself said once, well, if you think education is expensive, just try ignorance. And so this is something we cannot deny. And so we had to restructure the curriculum. The curriculum was restructured. We had to teach the students differently, because we were dealing with different kind of material. And we have nowadays to do two things that are different. One of them is enhancing employability. And by doing that, I'm not saying let's do just engineers or let's do just economists. No. I mean talking to the industry and decide what is more relevant. But don't forget that what is more relevant today might not be relevant in 5 years' time. So we need to have the wisdom to maintain the education level, but at the same time take care of the needs of the production, the economy. Anyway, you know that our citizens are growing old, and so many of them, they have to work until they are 60, they have to work until they are 50, and so they need requalification, they need retraining. And universities need to be prepared to do that, and more than prepared, we need to do that as a mission, put that into our mission, and do it seriously. Do it as a part of a mission. Otherwise, it is our grandsons that will pay the price. There is a statistics that say our grandsons, my grandson, there is a high probability that he will live until 100 years. And so if we do not retrain our older generation, we are doomed. So anyway, in the European Union, the benchmark for 2020 is 40% of graduates, and 82% of our graduates should find employment within 3 years of graduation. And I'm very happy to say that this is still true. It's easier to find jobs if you are graduated, higher education, than if you are not. Quality assurance, I'm sure you know all about this. So now we have agreed inside Europe to have standards to evaluate universities. In the past, I would send somebody to any university in Spain just based on trust. But the numbers are increasing, so the mobility is huge. So we need to know what trust means. So we need to have universities evaluated by agencies that are themselves registered in a European quality agency. So that if I invite ANECA to come and evaluate our universities in Portugal, we know that ANECA fulfills all the criteria, so we can rest with the results from ANECA. Because what happens in small countries like Portugal, like Ireland, is that, this is only my opinion, we should not in Portugal evaluate our own universities, because I know all of them. We are 12 million. I just read the paper without names and I know who wrote it. Because small countries should rely more on outside evaluations. Perhaps here, if you take Galicia, and you ask somebody from Malaga to do it, it will be all right. I don't know, I'm not sure. Perhaps it will, because it's so big country, such a distance, it might work. But my strong advice, at least to my country, is do it with foreigners. It's better. Now, the autonomy, as we have discussed already, is very variable from country to country. The funding, because it has decreased all over Europe, it implies that universities go and look for it. and look for it in industry, in Europe, with other universities abroad. And there are cases where universities have more than 100 different funding sources. This means they have 100 different ways of reporting on the use of that funding. And so this creates a lot of work and money to keep up with this reporting. So it would be good if we could establish a platform where the reporting back could be more harmonized. But I insist we need to report back. And then, because we have divergence policies at level of funding as well at European level, there is a risk of competition, a high level of competition, a competition higher than what it was to be in the past for money. It's natural, and it's happening, and it's going to increase if we are not careful. So again, let's compete and collaborate as well. It's better, it's safer for everybody. Okay, this I cannot resist this. I cannot resist the system consolidation and mergers. Because of the, I would not say that is because of the, but as you know, the Shanghai ranking had as a big influence in the way the foreign students choose where to go and study. So everybody wants to be on the top of the rankings. So everybody wants to be what is a world-class university. And the question is that a world-class university has three problems. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows how to get there. And this is the big problem of these big words, world-class university. What it is a world-class university? We do not know what that is, but some countries are trying to make them happy, make them happen by merging what they call consolidation measures. We had one in top-down in Denmark, where the money was absolutely top-down. It's say, you merge, you merge. That this happened in Denmark, this happened in Finland. Somehow it has happened in Germany with the excellence initiatives, a little bit different, and it's now happened in France. In France is a mixture between top-down and bottom-up. So everybody's trying to concentrate resources. If the resources, this again, it's only my opinion, if the resources are concentrated with the intelligence, with care, it will be beneficial. If we do it just for the sake of the numbers, it's going to be a disaster. And I always remember a colleague from Denmark telling me that the worst problem when we merge universities, if we merge two departments, two physics departments, there will be just one dean instead of two. And this is a problem. Okay, he said it laughing, but this is just at the tip of the iceberg. There is problems that need to be addressed by ourselves. And these consolidation and mergers, up to now, there is no real evidence that they are effective. Maybe it's still too soon, but there is still no real evidence that these mergers resulted fully. Okay, this is the famous slide on internationalization. And now, from the point of view of Europe, we have approached, at the beginning, we have approached internationalization as cooperation with other European universities. Erasmus, the mobility programs, etc. But now our focus, and Dilma has been re-elected. I don't know what this is going to mean for Science Sans Frontières, but the point is that there are more and more appetite for Latin American countries. And that appetite, from the point of view of the governments, is, I dare say, a little bit different from what is in universities. Universities usually look to gain through having students, good students. And perhaps I'm being very unfair, but I suspect that somehow the government is also interested in tuition fees. So it's a mixture of students and is a mixture of money and quality. But indeed, a movement that we need, at least in Portugal and Spain, keep an eye on, is really the fast-growing collaborations and networking with the focus on doctoral programs between Europe and the countries outside Europe. And of course, we all know that we are starting to speak about MOOCs, as if MOOCs was the, how you say, really the answer to everything. They will help us, but they are not the answer to everything. What are the challenges and the opportunities? Now again, for Europe, we need to avoid fragmentation and promote a more balanced interaction between our countries in Europe, but also between our countries in Europe and the countries outside Europe. As countries of the South, Spain, Italy, France and Portugal, we have a problem with the Mediterranean. The frontier of poverty has moved to the north shores of the Mediterranean. And with that, it comes a lot of immigration, a lot of problems, a lot of cultural differences that we need to take into account. And if universities are not able to deal with that, nobody will. Again, the national and European policies are a little bit different. The governments focus more on economic benefits of internationalization, where the universities are more interested in the quality and the experience of the students. Most of us that have studied and gained our PhDs abroad know that our brains were used. So our collaboration to the people that gave us our PhDs or our habilitation training or whatever picked our brains. So this must, for us, for universities, what is interested is the brain of the students. For government, perhaps, is the money that they bring in their pockets and their contribution to the local economy. I'm not saying that one is bad and the other is good. No, they are both good, but done it in a proportional and adequate way. Thank you very much. I have not finished yet, because I would like to call to your attention that I am again the South. So University of Aveiro is there again, but also that there is a very good article. It's called Global Europe 2050. It's available on the net and analyzes the future of Europe into 3 scenarios, taking into account education, research, and innovation as well.